Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Everybody's Business from Bloomberg Businessweek. I'm Stacey Vanek Smith.
And I'm Max Chafkin. Stacey,
yes.
This week,
yes.
we are going back to Argentina, the land of steak.
It's big news.
And inflation and bailouts. The bailout that we told you about a month ago, it is happening. It has happened. The election that many people in the U.S. were worried about, it is happening. So we have David Papadopoulos back here to talk us through it.
And after that, we'll be visited by a friend of the show in studio, very excited, Kyla Scanlon, economic teacher extraordinaire. And she is going to help us navigate this murky moment in our economy with some kind of under-the-radar economic things she has been watching.
I'm ready for it. Our underrated story. Now, obviously the Democrats, as people know, they're struggling to come up with a response to Trump. And I think we found it. I've got one word for you, Stacey. Wait,
okay.
It's more than one word. 47 Cheval Blanc.
47 Cheval Blanc is how the Democrats are going to pull it together?
Just wait for the story.
Okay, I'm in. So, Max, the economy right now, the American economy, is kind of a scattershot a little bit. But one part that has been very consistently not good is the housing market.
Yeah, interest rates are up. And because we haven't been building enough houses, basically no one's moving. And so if you want to buy a house, you are, I think
you're waiting for lower interest rates.
Scientific term is
Well, you're waiting for lower interest rates, right? Because you're just like, I'm not going to buy a house now. And
if you are sitting in your house, you're not going to sell your house. So
right. I mean,
moving.
you are a homeowner. The Chafkins are a homeowner, right? I mean, would you sell your house right now?
No, I wouldn't.
Well, in fact, Max, you are indicative of a national trend. The National Association of Retailers came out with these numbers this week. Realtors.
They're very adamant about that.
The National Association of Realtors, it's like auteur. As it turns out, home sales in the U.S. this year are the slowest they've been since 1995. That means slower than the housing crisis home sales.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's a lot.
And it's especially given that we went through this period for a very long period where interest rates were very low, where basically you could borrow money for next to nothing. It's kind of shocking, honestly.
And of course, here in New York, everybody's obsessed with housing and rent and how much everybody's paying for everything. So I thought I would go out and ask people how they were feeling about housing and home ownership right now. And here's what they said.
If you're looking at the price of a house compared to your salary, and then if you look at the percentage of someone's salary that would go into housing 50, 60 years ago, you're going to see housing's getting more expensive.
It's just that real estate, it's really expensive, so a lot of us don't really get there.
The cost of living going up compared to wages going up is like something that worries me. Wanting to buy a house, but also like wanting to be able to spend time with my kids, but also make enough money to like support them well.
We're still like in our early 20s. We have to eventually think about long-term like buying a house and stuff, so we're focusing on like saving for that.
My mom's a public school teacher. She didn't make enough money to like actually mortgage our house. So it's mortgaged by my grandma, and that's like sort of where like all the wealth is like coming from in my family. So it's like, if that's already happening to my parents, like what am I gonna do?
Oh man.
I know.
That last one was pretty heavy.
People are feeling, it's really interesting because it's this idea that like that's the investment. If you can cobble together the money to get a house, then you're kind of on your way financially. And as a non-homeowner, I do have like FOMO about that.
Yeah, Stacey, you're among the renters.
My excuse is that I started reporting during the financial crisis. So the very first interviews I did as a journalist were to people who were underwater on their homes, and it spooked me forever.
I mean, renting is great if you've got a good situation. That said, like the structure of our sort of regulatory system makes it like basically almost impossible to not want to own a home because there are these great tax breaks. If you get a mortgage, your mortgage payments are tax deductible. Like it's a huge subsidy that renters don't get. And then because we're not building enough houses, as you said, like there's almost this sense that no matter how much you
Supplies
pay,
limited.
it's going to go up. And it would be better if the world didn't work that way, I think. But it is how the world works.
Well, historically speaking, it is an excellent investment, but I have chosen to put my money in gold.
I know you have. Gold fell this week, Stacey.
I know.
It was a bad week for you.
For gold.
Okay, Stacey, it is, as we're recording this, October 22nd, Wednesday. Now, a month ago, I don't know if you remember, we had a whole conversation about Argentina.
Yes, of course.
Javier Milei, the cool chainsaw-wielding, sideburn-having president, had run into some economic problems. The U.S. was threatening to bail the country out, and a bunch of stuff has happened since we last talked. That bailout, it has happened. Milei is facing an election, I believe, on Sunday. That's the 26th. So there's a lot going on. So I thought we could bring back our friend David Papadopoulos, who we spoke to last month.
Yes,
he
indeed.
is an executive editor at Bloomberg. He's also the former host of Elon Inc. David, how are you?
I'm good.
All right. So, David, can you just catch us up and explain what is happening right now? So that bailout, that $20 billion swap deal that we talked about that the U.S. was threatening to do, they have now done it, right?
Well, I think that there's a lot of hocus pocus going on around here. They don't like the optics of saying, yeah, we cut Javier Milei a $20 billion check, which is essentially, what they've done. So a swap line means the U.S. gives Milei access to $20 billion, and Milei in turn gives the Americans access to $20 billion worth of pesos, if one is so inclined.
Oh, so it's like, I'll trade you $20 billion worth of...
We swap.
Except the peso is like really suffering from very, very serious inflation.
I mean, the part of the swap that really matters is Milei getting his $20 billion. I don't know. I mean, what are we going to do, Max? If we get $20 billion worth
we have
of
the
pesos, what are we going to... we would go do with them. So that, on the one hand, they've done that, the swap line, which I don't believe has been tapped yet. Separately, the U.S. Treasury is intervening in the currency market in Buenos Aires. They are selling dollars that the Treasury has in the Buenos Aires market, and they're buying up pesos to prop up the peso.
And this increases the value of the peso because a lot of the value of a currency comes from demand. And so if you are buying up pesos, if you're flooding the market with dollars and buying up pesos, that creates a healthy demand for the peso, and that increases its value.
Correct. They're creating demand for pesos, or the other way to think about it, and I think perhaps a better way, they are increasing the supply of dollars in the market in Buenos Aires so that when somebody wants dollars, there are now more dollars to be had because the U.S. Treasury is throwing dollars around there.
Well, and also there's like a political element here. I mean, Max mentioned that there is this election on Sunday, and is the subtext, or maybe not even the subtext of this, that if Milei's party gets voted out, then this help goes away?
Well, I think Trump said so explicitly.
He said it explicitly.
So it's not a subtext, it's just text.
Which was kind of weird. I mean, look, it's in general, it's not a great gambit as you're trying to prop somebody up and trying to pump them up to say, oh, but if this thing doesn't go really well in the next few days, we're totally out of here. Because now if I'm an Argentine investor or I'm someone who's skittish about holding pesos, I hear that body language and that posturing from Trump. Now I'm definitely getting out of the peso. Right now I'm definitely want my dollars. But so to be clear on the vote, though, this is a midterm election. Milei is not up for re-election yet. His party, his broader coalition right now has a very small percent of the votes in Congress. They are trying to get up to at least somewhere in the 30s, high 30s preferably. The party's not going to get voted out. The issue is, can they boost their presence in Congress enough to both A, allow Milei to properly stave off attempts by the opposition to pass through spending increases, B, to perhaps impeach him, and there are corruption scandals swirling around him and his inner circle, and he desperately needs to get over a 33% coalition to avoid that, and then C, in an optimistic scenario, can they get close enough to 40% to then be in a position to cut deals with other members of the opposition and get some of his vast agenda through labor reform, pension reform, tax reform.
So wait, the risk for the holders of this currency, for the people who want Milei to,
Like the holders of the currency, like you and me.
Yeah, exactly. And ever more every day as we continue to buy pesos, is what exactly that Milei's opponents will either gain seats or hold off Milei's gains enough to make it hard for him to basically do anything more, to like do more reforms, or like what is the actual?
So I think that is the principal thing. So you remember last time I was on, I gave you a shark reference?
Yeah.
Can I give you another shark reference?
Please.
Do you know what happens, Stacey, when a shark stops swimming? When it
dies because it can't move oxygen over its. Yes, right. I do know.
So these stabilization plans, when you're coming out of like crazy high inflation and an economy in crisis, you know, it's great when you have some initial gains, but you need to keep building off your momentum. You need to keep moving forward. And if you're going to stall out and the whole thing's going to die this quickly, right, and you lose all momentum, you're like a shark. Like this thing is just got to keep going forward. He's done some things. Yes, he's brought inflation down. Yes, he's temporarily at least stabilized the peso.
And a lot of austerity.
He's cut. Yes, he's certainly cut with his chainsaw a lot of spending. But you need to deepen reforms and really, keep things going. And so I think, yes, there's a real concern that if this is all you were able to do, Javier Milei, you're done. You're not going to get through anything else in your agenda to achieve your vision. No, we're out of here.
All right. So I want to just play a little clip of Trump kind of trying to explain this bailout on Air Force One the other day.
It's not a bailout, man.
Let's listen.
Right.
Are we expecting a beef deal?
I assume you're talking about beef. Yeah, to get beef prices down. The only price we have that's high is beef, and we'll get that down. And one of the things we're thinking about doing is beef from Argentina.
But my question is, what do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, they are
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Love that. As a reporter, being called young lady, really great.
Can we just put a pin in the question of U.S. farmers? And I just want to get at this thing that he's saying. Argentina is fighting for his life, young lady. Is that true? Is there any sense that that's true? It sounds like Argentina is preparing to vote against the guy who's in charge of the country.
I don't know about fighting for its life. I would say that it is potentially on the precipice of another full-blown crisis. I mean, without Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent riding to the rescue, they probably would have devalued the currency again. If they are forced to devalue again, and broadly speaking,
devaluing the currency. Do you mind just explaining?
Oh, sorry.
What
Devalue the currency means is
they stop buying pesos with dollars.
So right now the peso is worth 1,400 to the dollar. $1 gets you 1,400 pesos. If you're forced to devalue and stop defending the peso, it probably goes from 1,400 to, I don't know, 2,000, 2,500. What that gets you is a whole nother wave of inflation. So just when Milei was able to bring monthly inflation, I'm not talking about annual inflation, I'm talking about monthly inflation from around 10, 11% down to 2%. And for context,
which is extraordinary.
For context, in the United States, inflation runs roughly 2% a year. You would go from 10 to 2. Max, you could go right back to 10 or 15, and you could be right back in the soup of another crisis. So kind of fighting for its life in the sense, not really, but in the sense that, it would mean a whole lot more economic hardship. That's how you impoverish people, by inflation soaring out of control. But perhaps, yes, Max, it's a slight overstatement.
So is all this intervention working?
Kind of. I mean, if the gambit is, I'm going to buy Milei enough time to get to the Sunday vote, the October 27th vote, without having to devalue, keeping the peso stable, so it's not something that hurts him in the polls on Sunday, and so that Argentines can support him, hopefully rally around him, and not have the devaluation of the peso weighing on their minds, I guess, kind of.
So the story you're telling makes me think, why would anyone vote against Milei? I listened to the episode of Odd Lots that came out last week. Yeah. They had a guy who wrote a book about the Argentina default, and it was basically like presenting Milei as the only choice. And I'm kind of curious, what are these voters reacting to. They know that the currency is going to get devalued, and they don't care.
Yeah, I think they think this, and we have this piece that's going out on Friday, and they spoke with lots and lots of people there, some fantastic reporting, and including a lot of people who voted for Milei in 2023, and they're chainsawed out, man. Like, they're a little bitter. They're a little bit, one of the things that I fail to properly perceive, and I'm understanding better now, is Milei had always said, I'm coming with the chainsaw for the casta, la casta, the caste. The caste kind of mean the establishment. The establishment. And what Argentines very much feel is, maybe you went for the casta, but I feel like you kind of came for all of us. So like we have this one guy talking about how his mother, his aunt, all had their pensions not gutted, not cut, but capped. And when your pension is capped, frozen at a certain amount, and inflation is running 10% a month, you're getting killed, right? You're absolutely getting killed, right? This has happened across the board. All sorts of cuts like this. I think people didn't appreciate how much it was going to hit them. And the other thing is, yes, there's been the stabilization, inflation's come down, the peso's been stable, but like Max, at some point, I think you were saying the other day when we talked last time, where are the jobs? Where's the growth? Where's the free hand of the market? They're not seeing or feeling any of that. The corruption is weighing on their minds a bit. And by the way, a very interesting thing, Milei 2023 in the campaign trail, that chainsaw was everywhere with him. This time around,
like parades with him.
Yeah, this time around, that chainsaw never leaves his desk. He does not campaign with it now. He is essentially hiding it.
All right. Can we just real quick talk about U.S. politics here? Because we heard Trump talk about the farmers. Stacey, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
This effort to defend the peso has been bad for American soybean farmers. Argentina, as part of their attempt to get a bunch of dollars, have effectively lowered the prices of Argentine soybeans. China is buying those. That's hurting American soybean farmers. Now we get this second suggestion from the president of the United States that maybe we'll also buy some Argentine beef, which is also bad for, a different subset of farmers, a subset that is dear to your heart.
Yeah. My parents had a cattle farm when I was growing up. And
whereabouts?
In Idaho.
Oh, nice.
In Ola, Idaho. And I was really shocked to see that because that would be kind of potentially devastating. Although beef prices have been really high. I mean, that is an interesting other way, I guess, to prop up the Argentine economy, to buy a bunch of their agricultural products.
Yeah, that
gives them more dollars.
Right. Absolutely it does. And that's essentially what Trump was saying. Hey, to get down beef prices here in the U.S., we'll do this. Good for us, good for our consumers, good for the Argentine ranchers. But so, yes, you could import beef here, and apparently Trump might start doing so. Beef is sort of a niche product. Argentina does have a very powerful ag sector, but it's an ag sector. It's soybeans and it's wheat. And the soybeans, they don't come here. They all go to China.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because we believe that part of what the U.S. is trying to do is it's trying to, and the Journal's been on this story, they're trying to drive a wedge between the Argentines and China, between Milei and China, in coming in with this aid and all that. And some of that you'll be able to do. But listen, at the end of the day, Argentina desperately needs China to sell soybeans to. So
we talked about like the terrible politics of cutting people's pensions. People generally don't like that, even if there is a big crisis, even if there is the threat of hyperinflation. I mean, the politics here on the U.S. side,
not good.
The government is shut down. It's easy to forget, but in fact, government is shut down. We're spending $20 billion on this bailout, more money, seems like hundreds of millions of dollars a day on this buying pesos from the Treasury. And then you have the suggestion that we're going to make beef cheaper, which means, effectively like less money for American cattle farmers.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And that is a key part of his base. But I mean, the spin that he's putting on it, and I think it's a reasonable spin too, but good for the American consumer. I mean, if beef prices are sky high, it's good for people at the grocery store. The one other thing, by the way, that I almost forgot about to mention is $20 billion swap line, intervening in the currency market, and really leaning on the banks, the big Wall Street banks, to come up with another $20 billion.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon in Argentina, I believe, as we speak.
As we speak.
Why is this happening? Like, why is this a good idea for the U.S. to do? I mean, I understand, like, Argentina is, I think, very much at a turning point and in crisis, but, like, why is, I guess, Trump jumping in? Why is Jamie Dimon down in Argentina? What's going on?
I believe Jamie Dimon is in Argentina coincidentally. Our reporting tells us that Dimon just had planned to be down there right around now for months. But now that he's there, I think the sense is, okay, Jamie, like, let's try to put this thing together. But of course, the banks are going to demand a little bit more than just pesos as backing for their loans. They want stuff. They want, like, okay, what's our collateral? Are you going to give us, like, the lithium rights? Or, like, what other mineral rights are we going to get out of this? Like, I'm not just taking Javier Milei's word for it. So I think that one is kind of struggling in terms of whether it gets done. I just think at the end of the day, Donald Trump has one friend in Latin America, and his name is Javier Milei. And Milei is his counterweight to the leftists in Brazil, to the leftists in Chile, to the leftists in Colombia, to the Maduro regime in Venezuela. And he wants to stand by his guy and say, hey, we're with you through thick and thin. Go forth.
All right, David, thank you for being here. We'll have to come back and check in again once this election happens, and also if we see whether our shared investment in the Argentine peso, how it's doing.
Thanks, Scott.
So Argentina's economy in very troubling shape, but our own economy is in a strange place, I guess I would say.
I mean, it's a little, you might say we're heading in an Argentine direction.
No, I mean,
run.
That feels very extreme. But it is, like, very back and forth. I mean, the job market is not looking great, but the economy's growing. The markets keep setting records, but then lower income Americans really struggling in a bunch of ways. The government is shut down, but prices are rising. If the economy had a mood ring, I would say it has mixed feelings.
Yeah. If you're an AI guy who posts a lot on Twitter, you're getting paid like $100 million.
These are your glory days.
Yeah, just to show up. And if you're just like a regular person, there are no jobs available.
That's right. Hiring is, like, very, very low. But to help us kind of parse through this economy and figure out what we should be looking at, we are extremely lucky to have Kyla Scanlon, author of In This Economy, the best-selling book, which you should buy, in the studio with us. Hi, Kyla.
Hey. Yeah, happy to be here.
If you aren't familiar with Kyla's work, Kyla does a lot of basically, like, education, like economic education, I would say. And you're always looking at different economic indicators from all over the economy. So Max and I wanted to see if you would talk about maybe 3 of the signs in this economy that are less talked about and kind of help us figure out what this economy looks like. Before we get started, like, what do you think the mood of the economy is? You are, after all, the inventor of the term vibesession.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, you know, all that really matters right now is vibes because we don't have a lot of data. And so that's something I'm really paying attention to, where it does seem like narrative is moving markets much more than any fundamentals. And then with the economy, like, we obviously, the government shut down, so we don't have the data that we need to understand it. So I'm a bit worried.
Well, the first thing I wanted to ask about was feelings because of the vibesession, consumer sentiment. A lot of surveys coming out sort of show the consumer sentiment is not doing great.
Yeah, I mean, UMich, the University of Michigan, who's like one of the core measures of consumer sentiment.
Oh, yeah. Joanne Shu at the University of Michigan. We interviewed her, like 2 months ago?
Yes, about in fact, feelings.
I mean, the data that they have, sentiment moved basically sideways last month. We'll get a new print pretty soon. But, I mean, sentiment has been going down. People are really concerned, I think, pretty much across the board. So, yeah, people aren't feeling great right now.
Why does that matter? Do you know what I mean? I mean, feelings matter. I'm all about feelings, but, like, why is that a big deal?
I mean, like, there's all sorts of reasons that people have been talking about since the beginning of, like, the economy. Like, Keynes had animal spirits, the idea that, like, emotions really move markets and sort of fundamentals don't always reflect reality.
People aren't logical.
Right, they're irrational. And so I think, like, how people feel is ultimately a self-fulfilling prophecy for how they might spend. We saw a little bit of a disconnect with that over the past couple of years where people were like, I'm feeling really bad, but still retail sales were up. So I think, like...
I feel like that's also, like, I've been there.
Sure.
That was Joanne's whole argument for, like, why the survey matters. Because, like, if you're feeling bad, they don't spend as much money, and that on a macro level adds up to a recession, basically.
People are spending more, even though they're feeling bad.
Well, that was the idea of the Vibe session, which was back in 2022, so, like, 50 years ago at this point. But, like, it was this disconnect between data and sentiment. And so, like, the economic data during that time, like, GDP was booming, inflation was going down, the labor market was strong, but people were feeling, like, still really terrible. And so it didn't end up being that self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, we were not in a recession in 2022, although Google's search number for recession actually spiked around 2022.
Oh, everyone was Googling, are we in a recession? My gosh.
So it's interesting. Like, I think because the economy has become so concentrated right now, especially in AI, it's not always capturing, I think, how the everyday person is feeling. People talk about this with regards to GDP all the time, that it doesn't do a good job at capturing, how the average person feels. And so I think that's what we see more and more, is that the economic data might not be telling us the full story.
So consumer sentiment, red light, green light, yellow light.
In terms of where it's at right now?
Yeah.
I think we have the hard data to back up some of the sentiment. At least we did before the shutdown. Like, the only jobs that were being added was in healthcare and social services. Every other sector was shedding jobs, manufacturing, finance, technology. And so, like, it's pretty tough to feel good in an environment like that. And then inflation, like, grocery prices are, through the roof. And so I think people are like, oh, yuck, gross. So the data is enforcing the sentiment this time around, yeah.
So red light.
I think so.
All right. So the second thing is a little bit more numbers-based, a little more concrete, which is loan delinquencies. So car loan delinquencies are up. Car repossessions are apparently really spiking right now. This is especially scary because a lot of times people see this as a canary in a coal mine, because those are some of the first loans people default on before mortgage loans and things like that. And I think in the first housing crisis, this was one of the real red flags that things were going south. People were not making their car payments. So what do you see here?
I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of the auto lenders begin to go under. So First Brands is like one example of that. Tricolor, which JP Morgan lost $175 million on. And then PrimaLend is also like, oops. So I think that's really scary.
Now, these bankruptcies, Tricolor and First Brands, I've seen analysis that have suggested that it isn't like some kind of economic indicator, that it says something more about these specific businesses, which I guess happens. It's possible that like First Brands is just a bad company, or that Tricolor was, I think the story there is they were selling to undocumented immigrants, and like that was that's a popular
subprime loans anyway.
Right, but that, like, in other words, it might not indicate some kind of broader economic. Right. That seems like the question.
Yeah, but now with PrimaLend, I think everyone's like, okay, this keeps happening. Like, once you have 3 dominoes, it's like, okay, the whole pile might be tipping over. So I think because it keeps on happening, and then some of the regional banks have made fraudulent loans, and like people will come out and be like, I think the whole regional banking sector is fine. But with the government shutdown, like they don't have as much float as they normally would. And so I think like everything is sort of compressing around the regional banks and around the auto lenders, and people are having trouble making their payments, maybe because they're out of work or because the payments are just through the roof. I mean, I used to sell cars. I used to sell Hyundais back like in 2017, 2019. That was before we had the big run up in interest rates. And it was like crazy if we put somebody on an 84-month loan. And now it's much more commonplace for people to have 84-month loans.
You mean a long loan because the interest rate on a long loan is lower than
right? And like
84. How long is 84?
7 years.
Okay.
And the car depreciates like right when you drive it off the lot. Yeah.
Were you selling new
cars?
But
you would never
used
say
cars?
that when you were selling a Hyundai, right? You would be like, this is This is going to last for 10 years.
Well, 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Yeah. But it's tricky. It's really tricky because, like, I don't know. We could do a separate podcast on my struggles with selling cars. But yeah, people came in, you need a car. Like, the United States and most parts of the country does not have public transit. So people have to have a car to go to work. And so I dealt with a lot of people who were coming in and, needed to get to college or they needed to get to their job. And they were like, what can I afford? And the way that you make it more affordable for them is extending out the payments.
What do you see as the significance of this for the economy? Is this a big deal? Not a big deal?
I mean, it's definitely a point of concern when people can't make payments. And I think, like, it's something to watch because it is sort of the first domino to fall, to use that metaphor again. And I think you could see people starting to miss their mortgage payments, like sort of how we saw in 2008. So it just means that people are struggling. And I think people were already overextended with cars because the U.S. does have, like, a car culture going on where you got some
we've definitely got a car
you
thing.
got some tricked out SUVs that are like real expensive and the pickup trucks, like those things are crazy.
In Idaho, like pickup, like people spend all their money on their pickup.
It's
like
a
the first thing
thing
you buy when you come into a little money is a pickup.
Exactly.
So green light, red light, yellow light for loan delinquencies.
I think it's a yellow light. Like, I mean, I'm really watching the sort of private credit situation. Like, that's a $2 trillion industry. They're pretty exposed to some of this stuff that's rolling out.
Private credit's like private loans?
Private credit is essentially like PE firms, other investment firms.
Private equity.
Yes, lending money to companies. So instead of those companies...
So this is like on a macro scale as opposed to lending to individuals.
Yeah, so like if like you're a company and you're like, okay, I don't necessarily want to borrow money from a bank, you could go to a private credit firm.
Well, and with both Tricolor and First Brands, that was one of the elements. You had banks lending money to these companies and private credit firms, and they weren't talking to each other.
No.
So in addition to the like economic signal that a subprime auto lender sends, you have this, Kyla's bringing up the risk that like this spills over into some kind of financial crisis.
The cockroaches, as Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, said, and they did lose $175 million on Tricolor. And so there was actually like a little bit of drama between him and one of the private credit CEOs, Blue Owl, because Jamie Dimon said he was like, I'm paraphrasing, but like once one cockroach comes crawling out, like a bunch of them are going to come crawling out. Like if you've ever met a family of cockroaches, that is what happens. And so he was implying that like because these auto companies are starting to go under, there's like more to follow. And then the Blue Owl CEO was like, hey man, you're complicit too.
Yeah, like, you're a cockroach if that's what you're talking about.
Speaking of cockroaches.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Jamie Dimon and cockroaches because that was our third signal.
Yes, it is.
And I'm going to take it as a segue. So
perfect.
Jamie Dimon, I believe it was on Wednesday or Tuesday. It was earlier this week as we're recording. Jamie Dimon opened up the new headquarters of JP Morgan Chase. It is spectacular. The word that's used in all of these stories about it is fortress. It has like restaurants and
there's a club in it.
There's all sorts of
like a nightclub
only for employees.
No, not like a day
like
club,
a bar,
like a beach club.
Yeah,
no,
it's
I don't know.
Only for employees. Like you and I can't go.
I think it's a pub, right? Is it actually a club? I don't know. But there's like
I
all these amenities.
I don't know as a non-employee.
And Jamie Dimon, in talking about this, is talking about it as this kind of like statement thing about coming back to the office. What a believer he is in return to office, and he's bought this thing. And kind of like we're seeing this across the economy, like all of these companies talking about, return to office and the importance of it. And I'm kind of curious, like, to your mind, like what is actually happening there? Because it was only like a few years ago when all the leading lights, actually not Jamie Dimon, who has been pretty steadfastly about putting butts in seats, but most of the leading lights of businesses were like all about, remote work. There are all these remote first companies.
Well, for a moment, they were all about remote work.
And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what has happened here? Is it that like conventional wisdom has gone 180 degrees, or is it the labor market, or is it some combination of those two things?
I mean, I think companies just want to see what people are up to. Yeah.
It's just like a power move.
Yeah, probably, right? Like I think a lot of people were concerned about the productivity of workers at home. And I think people were perfectly productive, but yeah, I think there's like, we want everybody here. And then it's a good workforce culling effect. So if people are like, I'm not going to come back to the office, it's like, you're fired.
Quiet firing. This is the term, right? Quiet firing.
Is that the term?
Yeah. That's like a
Quiet
way
firing?
of like, instead of actually firing people,
Come
you just
on.
put a bunch
you
of
serious?
barriers in place. Yeah.
Oh.
You put a bunch of things in place and it's like, oh no, you're not fired. You just have to,
You
it's sort of
just
like,
quit.
hey, Cinderella, like you can go to the ball. You just have to like clean the staircase. And then, oh, you didn't get that all done. I'm so sorry. You can't go to the ball. It's like, that's
wow.
the
Yeah,
situation.
Yeah, there's
exactly.
lots of this
Yeah.
going on with
Yeah.
like relocations, especially people who moved to other cities during COVID.
I know a
And,
bunch of people that if
now,
it's like, oh yeah, you got to move
No,
here.
move back to the big city. Yeah.
I think this has absolutely nothing to do with productivity. I think this is 100% about the labor market. It's
Yeah.
just like they can do it, so they're doing it.
Sure.
And if the labor market were better, tighter, then they wouldn't be doing it. And I also think the fact that Jamie Dimon invested a reported $3 billion in this headquarters is
$3 billion.
probably contributing to his desire to have everyone like fill it up. It's like once you've
He doesn't want to be the only person at the club.
once you've paid for this, like it looks pretty bad if it's empty.
Yeah. Workers don't have a lot of power right now. So I think companies are using that as a get back to the office sort of thing.
What do you see as the significance of that in the economy?
It's interesting. Like, we don't have a very clear picture of the labor market right now because we don't have the economic data from the government. But like the Chicago Fed has some real-time indicators that they released. And like their indicators are like the labor market's mostly okay. But then when you look at like private market data, it's telling a little bit of a different story, like ADP, there's a job losses there. So I think like it's just a very confusing labor market, and AI is causing some problems. And then also it's not very broad. Like the only jobs are healthcare and social services.
Well, and hiring. Like I feel like
Hiring.
that's like the
Low
real red
firing,
flag.
low hiring. Yeah, right now at least.
It's just like still, which is weird, except for I guess all the
Well,
quiet.
I mean, if you're a business and you're dealing with tariffs, you're dealing with fiscal policy uncertainty, maybe even you're paying attention to the Fed rate cuts, like maybe you don't want to hire people right now.
Or if you're a worker, why? Like this is not a good time to change jobs.
No,
like I'd be,
no.
it's this exact same factor you're talking about with businesses. Like uncertainty makes us not want to move.
Right. Totally.
So Kyla, green light, yellow light, red light.
With the labor market, I'm so worried about the labor market. Yeah. I just I do videos on social media and
Which are great. You should check them out. You do one every day.
Almost
and
every day.
look at all
yeah.
different aspects of the economy.
Yeah, but
they're
like,
really great.
I get a lot of messages from people, and like my audience is primarily young people, and they're great. But like a lot of people are like, Kyla, I cannot find a job right now. And so I have like anecdotal data that I think might be influencing me a bit more. But yeah, I'm like red light on the labor market. Yeah.
So you're red light on the job market, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, what about the overall economy?
I don't know. I mean, I'm worried. I'm just worried, and I hate it. I've been on the road for the past year and a half. I'm in like 6 states over the next 4 weeks. And I get to talk to a lot of people from all over the country and all parts of the country. And like the one thing I hear is just like, I'm worried about the economy. I absorb all that. And then I look at the data that we have and I just see like this point of concern. And like, I'm really worried about the divergence between the stock market and the economy too. Like AI is driving so much of economic growth, is driving so much of the stock market, and I just feel like it is disconnected from the material reality of the average person.
Kyla, this was great. Stick around. We've got one more segment for you. So, Kyla, Stacey, this week in Businessweek, we published a cover story about Gavin Newsom. This is the very...
Kyla lives in California.
yeah,
This
you're
is
governor.
Your governor.
The point of the story is that there is this fight, which I actually hadn't been paying super close attention to, over Proposition 50. This is California's potential plan to add a bunch of Democratic House seats to like compete with the Texas redistricting. And the larger point is basically like Gavin Newsom, he has not said he's running for president, but he's definitely running for president. And I've been thinking about that, and I've been thinking about that in light of a detail in this story that I think is my bid for underrated story, which is Gavin Newsom's favorite drink, which is a bottle of 1947 Cheval Blanc, which is a very, 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 very expensive bottle of wine. And I read this. It's really funny because Gavin Newsom is trying to rebrand himself as like a regular guy. He's got a podcast.
No.
He like hangs out with the broadcasters.
Fancy bottles of wine is not the way to rebrand yourself.
In the Businessweek story, where the authors Josh Green and Elihu Kamisher, they have a quote from one of Gavin's friends who says, when people say, who is Gavin? I say, he's one of us. He's me. If you know Gav, like I know him, you know him with the hat on backwards. You know him drinking a beer, hanging out, watching ball, talking sports, talking shit about things. Okay, so that's
Gavin Newsom said that about himself?
That's one of his friends. And then there's a nice little parenthetical that mentions that Gavin Newsom's favorite bottle of wine is a 47 Cheval Blanc, which costs like, we say $15,000 in the story. I mean, I think they're so
favorite bottle of wine implies that you've purchased this more than once.
Okay, so now this is my question. Do we think this is bad in a political candidate or not? Because it seems like obviously very bad to be like, I'm one of the bros. I just like to have an expensive bottle of wine. But I also thought, like, here's Gavin Newsom last year. This is, I think, where the detail comes from, talking about his favorite bottle of wine.
Is there one bottle of wine that you're saving for a very special occasion? I need a year, too.
This is where your political consultants are not going to like my answer, because I can give an honest answer, but let me not. I read that book on Applebee's after we lost one of the
Getting a politician to talk about wine.
Oh, of course, Newsom said, at 1947, which was the answer to your question. Of course he would say that.
Okay, so he's being real.
Well, I'm not sure that is the way to appeal to the people. I don't know. I've never had a $20,000 bottle of wine. I've never had a $200 bottle of wine.
I didn't even know wine was that expensive. Yeah. Wow. Why? Why is it so expensive? Is it just rarity or scarcity?
I think it's from 1947.
It's 78 years old.
Okay.
I actually pulled up an article about this.
How many
wine.
bottles do they have from this year?
Very, very few. And according to Sotheby's, the Sotheby's website, which has a write-up on this, they say there are vanishingly few bottles left in the world and only 16 left at the chateau itself.
I just feel like, remember there was like that Jeff Foxworthy used to have that whole thing where he's like, you're a redneck when, he had that whole thing. I feel like there is some equivalent of like, you are not one of the people when your favorite wine costs. First of all, when your favorite wine is described by Sotheby's, like when your favorite drink.
Whoa.
And I guess this is like part of the political moment we're in, like walk a line between being relatable and
his authentic
self.
I don't know if we can beat up on him too much, comparatively to what the president has earned. I think it's $1 billion in crypto or something like that.
That's true. He's done quite well. And a jet.
I think we gotta look at the policies and decide from there. I don't think it's great. I didn't even know wine could be that expensive, but maybe he sounds like he's in business.
I think that I actually felt like this was a very damaging detail until I watched that video. And then I thought, no, he's just being who he is.
Honest, yeah.
And actually maybe in our moment, that is more valuable than the old saw about he's just a regular guy, you'd have a beer with. Although there's something kind of clumsy about the backwards baseball cap.
I mean, that's not a good depiction of what the everyday person
when I relax, I turn the cap around.
That's how you know it's after hours.
Yeah, beer in hand.
Business.
Oh my goodness. I think a PR firm could do some work with that.
Our show is produced by Stacey Wong. Magnus Henriksen is our supervising producer, and Amy Keene is our executive producer. Sam Rogich handles engineering, and Dave Purcell fact checks. Sage Bauman heads Bloomberg Podcast. Special thanks to Jeff Muskus, Julia Rubin, and Maria Ling. If you have a minute, please rate and review the show. It means a lot to us. And if you have a story that should be our business, email us at everybody's@bloomberg.net. That is everybody's with an S at bloomberg.net. We would love to hear from you. And thank you very much for listening. We will see you next week.